Namaste. This is Mauli Baviskar, founder and executive director of Dhamru Yoga and Sound Therapy Studio. So I welcome you back again to the second episode of our series of mantra musics. In the last video, we talked about the basic fabric of the Nada and the Shabda. We talked about the concepts of Nada Brahman and the Shabda Brahman, and how these sounds affect us at different levels in terms of abstract sounds, in terms of language and meaning, and even beyond the language, the science of frequency. Towards the end, I had promised that we will talk about all these confusing terms that we come across: the mantra, stotra, stuti, bhajan, sukta. What is all that? Well, it's not that complicated. Of course, they overlap each other in terms of their patterns and usage, but let's understand each term in this video today. So, in the last video, we were talking about how confusing it is sometimes when people throw so many words: mantra, sukta, sutram, stotram, stuti, bhajan. Does that confuse you also? So let's see now what all of these mean. And they're not exclusive of each other. And we will see as we go along that a lot of times they are overlapping in the meaning, in the use, and sometimes also in the patterns that they create. So the first term we pick is suptam. When we say this word suptam, it means something that is well said. Sa uktam. Uktam is to express, to speak. Sa uktam. Well said, well spoken, or in praise of something or somebody. So, when we talk about the Vedas, they are divided into various mandalas, which consists of so many hymns. Collection of some of these are called the suktams, and the suktams may consist of a lot of shlokas. So this conglomeration of these shlokas, this is called a suktam. For example, we have the Shri Suktam, we have the Narayana Suktam, we have the Purusha Suktam, which is popular, we have Nasadiya Suktam, so many of them. So sometimes when we talk about these Suktam, say for example, just take the Shri Suktam, the apparent meaning, if you see, is the praise of Shri or the goddess Lakshmi. But it is so metaphorical and the meanings are so layered that if you understand the true meaning, it takes us towards our higher state of being. So that in a nutshell is a suktam. So the next one that we take is stotram. Now stotram and suktam both again are a collection of hymns in praise of God. So essentially you will see that more or less they overlap in their function. But stotrams you will find more in the non-Vedic literature, while the suktams you will find amongst the mandalas of the Vedas. So examples of some stotrams, say Shiva Panchakshari Stotram, Ramaraksha Stotram, Aditya Hridaya Stotram. There are so many. Also, depending on the number of shlokas that it consists of, we name it that way. So, say suppose we have 5 shlokas in this stotra, we call it Panchakam. If there are 6, we call it Shatakam, 8 Ashtakam, 10 Dashakam, and that's how it goes on. Stuti, when we take this word Stuti, Stuti is any offering to the divine. So a stotra could be stuti, a suktam could be a stuti. Any prayer that comes from my heart and I offer to the Lord, it could be a stuti. Mostly we see that stotrams and stutis are made for a particular god or goddess. Like we have the Bhavani Ashtakam by Sri Adi Shankaracharya, or say the Shiva Tandavam by Ravana. or we make it for a person who is of a prime importance, say a king or something. So we have the Bhartrihari Shatakam, or something or a topic which is of an utmost importance. So we have the Nirvana Shatakam by Sri Adi Shankaracharya. So different contexts, but essentially they become like a word of praise at one level, but at another level they take us higher into our own well-being, or you can say your own state of consciousness. So that is stotram, we saw suktam, we saw stuti. Now we come to the word mantra that we have been waiting for. When we talk about stotrams and stuti, we talk about the words and their importance, their meaning, and the profound philosophy that they expound upon us. But when we talk about a mantra essentially is experiential in nature. So rather than the meaning of it, it is the experience of it and how that sound transforms us. So examples of some mantras: Gayatri mantra, Mahamrityunjaya mantra, or we have the Surya mantras, or we have the Shanti mantras, and there are so many more, millions of mantras. So anything that transforms you and brings about a higher possibility within you can become a mantra. Now we come to the term sutra. Sutra, it means like a thread. So what does sutra mean in terms of the vocabulary that we are expanding right now? See, sutras are like a compilation of encoded words and in a very concise form. So a sutra needs to be expounded and explained and elaborated by a wise and a great guru who knows, who experiences the higher states of consciousness and who can explain us the meaning of these sutras. When these commentaries are written, even when the gurus are explaining, there are different commentaries written. They are called bhashyams. So when a guru is trying to explain a sutra, this thread that he carries of knowledge, he can make a garland either of the pearls or of the flowers, up to him, but always the sutra, the thread, the base stays the same. So sutras are slightly difficult at times for common people to understand, and they need a higher interpretation from a guru or somebody who's wiser and knowledgeable. So examples of sutras are Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, Brahma Sutras, Narada Bhakti Sutras, and we also have Vatsyayana's Kama Sutras. And you know how much misinterpreted they are. That's why I was trying to explain that sutras always need a higher authority to explain their meaning, the higher meaning that they bestow upon us. So that's sutras. Effectively. And this is very interesting because even a sutra can become a mantra. It depends on the efficacy of that sound that has been given, mostly by a guru. So while we talked about the suktams, stotrams, stuti, mantra, sutra, we now need to talk about what is a shloka. Shloka is a rhythmic verse, basically the lines which are typically rhyming and of a same length or in a particular chanda or a meter, and these compilation of lines are then used in the suktams or stotrams or stutis or mantras. So these shlokas are kind of a brick that creates the whole structure. Shlokas, so if you see the Indian compositions of the texts, the Ramayana, shlokas again, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, everything is in form of a meter, a chanda, a shloka. So that's what is the base construction material, I could say. That's a shloka. So now let's see something that is very interesting. So say, let's take Rama Raksha Stotra. It is a stotra. If I take one shloka from it, Rame Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Maranane. This shloka from Rama Raksha Stotra can become a very potent mantra if I intend to do so. Isn't it interesting? So yes, these terms can overlap and take over each other's functions if the intention is meant to be so, or if a very powerful guru gives it to you, it is energized, then it works as a mantra as well. So that's about terms. Last, I thought I'll also talk about bhajana, also because it will help me to connect you to the next video where we are going to see this in a practical applied aspect. We talked about the theory and the reason, what they are, meanings and definitions. Now in practice, how they sound, that's the topic of next video. But here we will end with this term bhajan. So as we talk about bhajan, bhajan is more musical verse in its compositional aspect. But when we come to the root word bhaja, bhaja means to share, to participate, to serve. So you see, bhajans are more devotional in nature. It is more about the bhakti yoga part, the surrender part, and because of their devotional nature, you will see that bhajans have a lot of emotional charge within them. But about the structure that we talk, bhajans are more or less a very free flowing structure. There are no particular rules about it. Yes, they could be in a form of a meter, or they may not be. They could be sung, mostly they are sung, and with it's also a gathering that it invites. So that's bhajan. We might see. So see, some bhajans would be heavy on their meanings, some on the melodic composition of the ragas that they are used, and some will be more of, again, a new term that I dropped in, kirtana, that we use one phrase and we keep on repeating and get it into a higher state of meditative consciousness. So different ways a bhajan could be expounded, and when we talk about sound, we are talking here about mantra musings and the fabric of nada. Then how could we forget talking about, though very briefly, talking about Indian music? Especially, I will take here the context of Hindustani classical music and the terms that you have there, the Drupad and the Khayal and the Taranas and the Thumris. Why I am talking about that? Because music or the sound impacts us in so many ways, and that's what I want you to realize. So while Drupadas are very not serious, I would say, but very, very spiritual in nature, and they would transform you. It's very, it was called the temple music of the time. And then came the khayalas, where we came into the ornamental ideas of this day-to-day life and romance and whatnot. And then the taranas, again the sounds without meaning, but taking up the raga and the color of that raga on our minds. And then the thumri, which are very, very ornamental in nature. So many ways music or sound can be used. We will see some of them in the next video, and that should be an experiential video for you all, so that you understand how different sounds can make you feel. Some will be comprehensible by your mind and some will transcend. So let's see each other in the next video, and till then I hope you enjoyed understanding this myriad of terms that people keep throwing, so next time somebody tells you, you will know what exactly they mean. Thank you.